ThreatLocker implements a least privilege approach to cybersecurity, blocking every executable unless specifically authorized by your team. This methodology mitigates ransomware, supply chain attacks, and zero-day exploits, and ensures protection for your organization 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To learn more about how ThreatLocker can help prevent known and unknown threats in your digital environment, safeguard your data and operations from threat actors, and align your organization with respected compliance frameworks, visit securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker.
Welcome back to Paul's Security Weekly, where we're going to hit the news. But first, do you want to shape the future of identity? I mean, I know I sure do. Identiverse 2025 is looking for dynamic speakers like you to share groundbreaking ideas with over 3,000 identity and access management leaders. Join the most influential voices in IAM and help drive innovation in our industry. Submit your presentation proposal today to securityweekly.com/IDVCFP or Indio Delta Victor Charlie Foxtrot Papa. Yay! All right, now to the news. Who wants to go first?
Lee wants to.
Well, I was actually wanting to know if Mandy wanted to go first because
Lee
she's
wants
got
to go
this
first.
really cool story.
All right. Well, let's go with Lee, and we'll give
I'll
Mandy
go-
a minute
I'll
to
go
prep,
first.
right?
Oh, no.
So,
We can go into it.
All right.
So my-
Rochambeau for it.
Lee,
you
they
got
didn't
it, or
hear
shall I?
Go for it, Lee.
Okay, so my first three stories actually kind of go together. It's about Salt Typhoon recording people's voice calls. The FCC is announcing they want the telecoms to get their act together. They're going to augment Section 105 of the code that basically says wiretapping will only be allowed, but it can't, by court subpoena, whatever, and that the it has to be protected from unauthorized tapping, and which translates into they want them to implement and monitor their security programs, and then a whole bunch of people as a result of that are moving off of the SMS bandwagon onto secure phones methods like Signal, Telecom, etc. WhatsApp, the other, the encrypted communications apps that aren't using the native phone. And so there's some information on securing those in my story number 3. And so I was thinking, holy crap, are people just waking up to Salt Typhoon, or was it just something that had to be bad enough to get people's attention? I mean, we've been grousing on Signal 7 weaknesses for how long?
Yeah. Now, so Lee, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean,
You're probably not.
and my understanding of some of the Salt, Volt, Typhoon, whichever, going into the quote critical infrastructure for all of our cellular communications that have been noticed we've been told that they've been infiltrated, and we should be moving to some other secure messaging because texting is not secure anymore, apparently. My understanding was, and I think you mentioned this, that the infiltration and the way that some of the data was being acquired was through the actual methods for doing legal wiretap that was just now being used by the threat actors for illegal wiretap. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Which
that's
then means, like, what is it? iMessage, which is now PQC encrypted. If you're doing iMessages across the board, you're fine.
Yep. It was it was funny. I saw this story came up on the news, like national news. I'm up early enough in the morning that national news I get various news sources and so forth, because I'm up enough early in the morning before I go to work. And this was one that came up, and it was like to distill their story down, they said if you're using text messaging, if it comes up blue, you're okay.
Yeah.
Meaning if you're on an iPhone device and you're texting between two people and it's blue, you're using the secure protocol developed by Apple, as opposed to if you're on an Apple and your text message is green, which meant you texted someone out of the Apple ecosystem, which meant that it was using traditional SMS messaging, which was unencrypted. Like, oh my
Correct.
god!
Wow. Okay.
If you're blue,
And what if it's red?
you're fine.
You're
See a
being
doctor.
red.
What if it stays gray?
I don't know, but
What
if
if
it's
your
blue,
color-
it's
You're
good.
using
Gray,
it's
you're
phone?
receiving.
Well,
Um,
technically, if you only get one check mark, wouldn't that mean you're safe because it didn't probably go anywhere?
Message failed to send.
Right.
Failed to send. Yeah,
Like, so just don't send them, and you'll be fine.
yeah. Just don't send text messages anymore. You'll be fine.
Well, this actually brings up a question I have on Lee's number 3. When you go down to advice, it's talking about for protocols and management processes for network engineers, and the third point, go to the subpoint, the last one, it says, do not manage devices from the internet. Only allow device management from trusted devices on trusted networks.
Mm-hmm.
What does
How do
that
you-
mean?
Yeah. Well, so
Local.
yeah. So like, if
That works
you are,
really well with cloud.
Yeah, if you're managing a desktop computer or a phone, you need to bring them into your trusted corporate network and don't send those updates over the internet. Like, how the hell do you do that with a
I
remote
don't-
I'm
workforce?
not.
I'm
That-
confused.
So I know a little bit about mobile device management, and the MDM server is authenticated to the phone with certificate-based authentication, as well as using TLS or other encrypted channels. So it's basically it's an authenticated encrypted channel. I don't understand why you would worry about that communication because it is protected. And oh, by the way, if you're using Intune, that's in the cloud. If you're using there's cloud-based versions of just about all the MDM solutions. I'm not sure how much is on-prem anymore, let alone let's bring it in on-prem. And the whole idea was that you didn't have to be on-prem. You had ubiquitous control, right?
Right.
And now they have MDM-like functions for your laptops that are in the field. Whether it's the
Yep. Or phones or
right. So that one feels like it's a little off the mark without having some deeper dive. See what those guys with CISA and those guys really were talking about. Although I think they are trying to tell you to dial down the risk, where you can.
Can we go back to
Yeah.
the
Sure.
what the bad guys are doing, what the essence of the attacks are? You mentioned that they were basically attacking a legitimate process or exploiting a legitimate process for invoking wiretapping. I was curious, and I've not been up to date on the news. I keep hearing things about this thing, but I hadn't dug into any of the details yet. Was it just that, or was there any level of network IP-based attack or telecom traffic type of attack involved?
So, Jeff, I don't think it was specifically that they were attacking the process that was using for wiretap, that they were attacking a whole bunch of other stuff that granted them access to systems so that they could effectively kick off their own wiretap.
So it was
without-
network-based attack.
That is my
So
So
understanding.
essentially, they cracked some systems, some of which happened to be wiretapping systems, and then they were able to do their own wiretaps without any oversight or governance.
When you have a legal backdoor, you may not be the only one using it. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Long
well
live
said,
Clipper
Jeff.
chip.
Backdoors are a trade secret.
Yep.
Fuck.
Yeah,
Excuse
Jeff,
me.
the Clipper chip. Oh my gosh.
Actually, I was going for a War Games reference there, but okay. So
Lee, what was your War Games reference? I missed
We
it.
talked over you.
that don't backdoors are not a trade secret.
Yes, this is true.
But no, seriously, I think I'm wondering if they were specifically targeting wiretapping systems, or they were just going after these folks and found them.
It's a good question. I don't know.
These folks meaning governmental
Law enforcement.
people?
I mean,
Okay.
they were targeting law enforcement.
Yep.
Right.
Well, but the Kalea systems are not in law enforcement. They're actually in the telecommunications infrastructure.
Oh, so if they were going after your Verizons, your AT&Ts, your T-Mobile, and then they found them.
Yep.
And
Okay,
the
that makes
Android
even more
others.
sense.
Yeah, that is my understanding. Is that the mobile operators were their target.
So yeah, because I had heard that kind of a context that the mobile operators were the droids they were looking for.
I want to point out that remember with SS7, which are also run by the mobile operators, you're able to locate any phone without the phone owner knowing it. You're able to collect
Sure.
text messages. What else can you do with SS7, Larry? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't dug into SS7 enough to.
Oh, I did a while back, and it's terrifying. I mean, and anybody can be an SS7 operator as long as you're willing to pay for the privilege of sticking a CLEC, a switch, a phone switch in the network. They'll let you be an SS7 operator. Then there's the Kalea systems, which are run by the mobile operators. Which, and by the way, that includes things like Mint and Cricket or Circuit or whatever the hell they are.
Yep.
And I can never remember if it's a Cricket phone or a Cricket fabric cutter or whatever. But and some of those operators are fantastic about security.
You can't even say it with a straight face.
I can't. I really can't. And so, like, yeah, welcome to wiretap heaven.
But
So-
that's sort of a segue to Lee's second story, and the fact that the FCC commissioner or whatever their title is came out and proclaimed we're going to start pushing, I'm paraphrasing, cybersecurity regulations on telecom. It's 25 just about. We've been doing this stuff over these phone lines for close to 50 years, and there's no regulation.
The legislation they're augmenting hasn't been touched in 30 years.
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Well, yeah, we could go back to the wire. What is
Wiretap
it?
laws, exactly.
The wiretap laws from the 30s.
Yeah,
But-
no, you're not wrong,
and
Jeff.
I'm like, well, okay, that's okay. They've done their good deed. They rattled the cage and said we're going to do some regulations, but why doesn't it exist yet?
What?
If you read the thing, it says they're going to require communication service providers to submit an annual certification to the FCC attesting that they have created, updated, and implemented a cybersecurity risk management plan which would strengthen communications from future cyber attacks. They are going to do jack shit.
Yep.
Oh,
It's
but
a
you
whole
didn't
big
read my
piece of-
last sentence on that story along the lines
sorry.
of how does this not become a check the box, but actually is real cybersecurity?
It doesn't.
You don't let them self-assess, because when they self-assess, they lie.
That's okay. I'll get my buddy. We'll cross self-assess.
There you go.
I was really tempted to bring
No.
up these stories with Eric, but I didn't want to bogart the.
So I
Jeff, if you let merchants self-assess PCI, would they lie? They would tell the truth, wouldn't they?
Well, I wouldn't call it lying, but there's something that I call willful ignorance.
Ignorance. Yes. Malicious compliance. Wait, no.
Lying
So-
is such a strong word.
Just the way you said that, Jeff. I wouldn't call it lying. That was so beautiful, man. Thank you. I needed that laugh.
doesn't. So this is sort of not intended to be a segue, but
Okay.
is it CMMC that allows for self-assessment, or is it 171?
No. Okay,
Both?
so for CMMC at level 1, which is basically people cutting the grass, filling the soda machines, whatever, it's 17 controls. You're allowed to do self-assessment. For level 2, which is most contractors, most federal government DoD contractors, you have a certified third-party assessment organization, a C3PAO, which does the assessment of your systems.
and that's a real assessment.
And
It's a
where
real
does
assessment.
R2D2 come in?
Do you know I told the DoD that people would, they looked at me like, really? And I went, are you joking? They're going to make the joke. And they went,
C3PAO, is that what you
yeah,
said?
C3PAO.
It's the Italian version of C3PO, right?
Yeah, but we've been
C3PAO.
calling
C3PAO.
it's essentially the same acronym they've been using in FedRAMP. They didn't think about it.
3PAO. Yeah, they just added on certified. That's it, exactly. But
good.
and then a level
It's
3,
still-
there's only 3 levels. Level 3 is you're holding so much controlled unclassified information, CUI, that we can't trust anybody except DIBCAC DCMA to do your assessment.
That's a lot.
It's right here.
And that's
My repo's gone. That's all here now.
And that's the big, like that's the Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. That's the big contractors. The problem, of course, is that because this is so brand new, is that the flow down from the primes is you need to be a level 2. But I'm cutting the grass. You still need to be a level 2 because we got to make sure that you don't screw us on this contract. We're
So
seeing a
how does
huge problem with
that? Okay, I almost brought this up with Eric because one of his blog posts is from more than a year ago, and it references CMMC, and he was talking about it being delayed. He says, in no small part because of the challenges in accrediting enough third-party companies to certify the, no joke, 140,000 companies that fall under the scope of CMMC.
It's wrong in two ways. So
Okay.
first off, it's
Don't-
300,000.
Don't get me wrong.
companies.
It was a year ago, so
It was, yeah, exactly. This
The
is
estimate 5 years ago was 300,000, but I understand why, because a lot of those companies are level 1. So if you leave them out because they're doing self-assessment, you're probably about 140. So not a big deal. And then the other problem is with the idea that it's because we can't get enough C3PAOs through the process. Because they've made the process unnecessarily difficult. Now, this is my opinion.
Is
Please don't
it
sue
that
me.
they can't get them through, or is there not enough companies that are even bothering to try?
Oh, no. There were 500 or 600 companies that signed up to become a C3PAO.
Okay.
In 5 years, they've managed to get like 70 done.
It's FedRAMP all over
Yeah.
again.
Because the freaking people running the system are not allowing the system to process properly because they're doing everything so damn manually. And
where
I'm
do these
probably
people
gonna-
work?
Various government agencies. I'm not going to go into any more detail than that.
but I think you said enough, right?
I probably did. My day job is probably going to be pissed at me, but whatever.
Government agencies. Okay.
So to bring us back a little bit full circle on this one, with SS7 and all the cellular business and the text messaging, I think this is a great feedback to me in that, as the author of the SANS wireless hacking course, guaranteed once a week, someone asks me, whether it be a student, someone interested in taking the course, or SANS themselves, hey, are you going to cover are you going to cover cellular hacking in the course? And the answer is no, for a number of reasons. One,
Right.
it's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
2, to start engaging with any of the cellular networks, you need licensed radio gear. You need to have a license to communicate in those. And 3, what if you hack it? And how does this apply to your enterprise? If you're doing an enterprise-based assessment, because we SANS we sell to enterprise. If your enterprise goes and hacks cellular, what can you do about it? Are you going to go to the competing standard? Are you going to go use something else?
I've actually got an answer for you.
Josh, as an enterprise, and you provide cell phones to all of your enterprise, and you go and hack cellular, and we can't use this because it's insecure. What are your alternatives, or what can you do as an enterprise to improve the security of the cellular and mobile operator networks? And the answer, arguably, and I'm going to give an answer, and Josh will give you a chance
Please.
to chime in here. For me, as a consumer of a cell phone through a mobile operator, the ability that I have to influence the security of the cellular data and the mobile operator is absolutely zero. However, I can leverage those data networks to do encrypted communications over it. So it really becomes about the applications and things that I do. But great, cellular network gets hacked. What can I do as a consumer, as an enterprise consumer, to improve that, to improve the functionality of my device, my cell phone, make my cell phone more secure on the cellular network? There's absolutely nothing that I can do.
Yep. I agree.
So,
However,
I like
what
this.
I will say is that as a company, as an organization, if you have, for example, a headquarters, and you determine that there are cell towers, like let's say there's 3 of them around your headquarters, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And all of a sudden there's 10.
Yep.
Something's different.
Yep.
That is a type of not cellular hacking per se, but a cellular awareness. Can I call it that?
Yeah,
That
sure.
could be useful around a physical location.
Mhm.
In terms of your fleet of cell phones, like DEF CON, what is it, almost 10 years ago now? God, I'm old. We found that there were 36 instead of 18. And we went, that's wrong.
Mhm. And there was even more recent studies within the last 5 years, like just pre-COVID, that there were more studies that the number of cell towers, more than doubled within the week prior to DEF CON. You may also note that I want to say they did very similar to CES, and that the numbers around CES also jumped drastically. Lee's got
exactly true, and some of them may be legitimate because the cell phone companies will, for a large conference, bring in cell phone towers on wheels and trailers and such.
Additional capacity.
Some of them were not. I'm going to be very clear on that.
But it was because I lived in Las Vegas, and so around like DC 26, 27. So for CES or for DEF CON, with Hacker Friends, you could easily 2 weeks before, you could test. There would be 8 in a given area, and then right immediately before there'd be 18 to 25.
Yep. But on the exactly, Mandy. But on the app side and on the mobile fleet side of phones, on a corporate basis, you can use some kind of enterprise mobility management to mandate, like, for example, signal use or armor text or Everbridge, encrypted communications, just like you said, Larry, just like you said. Okay.
It's at a higher layer in the stack.
There are things you can do, but it's at a higher layer. You're absolutely correct. It's at a higher layer in the stack.
Yep. And Lee, you had a comment.
I actually had 2 comments. One was, remember a couple years ago, there was a hack at one of the conferences where they were knocking things down to the 2G.
Yes.
The
and then
attacks.
hacking the heck out of them.
Yep.
And I realized that 2G's retired now, but still,
just like
it's like an SSL fallback kind of attack, right?
Right.
Less secure.
Yep.
And interesting factor to think about, harder to measure. But then the other thing I thought about, you talked about how many cell towers are in your area. If I am remembering right, and I could have this bollocksed up, with 5G, it was intended for more towers in closer proximity.
Yeah, the cells are smaller.
So you could get distracted by the 5G growth and miss what you're describing. I mean, it's still valid, but you're counting a difference among, say, 50 instead of 10 cell towers or something.
Yeah. And Lee, it's becoming a little bit more dated, but we teach one of these types of things in the software-defined radio section of the wireless class for SANS, about taking existing projects and turning them on their head a little bit and using them for other purposes. And one of those examples is using the tool Calibrate for your RTL SDR to detect rogue cellular towers. Calibrate is there for you to calibrate your radio, so that, because they're cheap radios and there might be a little off, little deviation in where it's actually tuned to where it's supposed to be tuning. But by using the well-defined frequencies for the individual cellular channels, you could figure out what that deviation is. And when you're going to do other stuff, you can take into account for that. Now, it was largely using 2G, and I think there's some stuff for 3G that it still does that, which is closely going out the way. So, and the joke that I make is that cellular towers, don't just get up and walk away.
No.
And they are typically pretty fixed, and you could go into an environment and take a really good baseline and then notice changes. 5G, we're just going to have a higher number and so forth. But being able to determine a baseline is still going to be able to determine a baseline.
I feel compelled to point out that when I first started working at the National Security Agency back in 1867,
back in my day, when rocks were soft and dirt was young,
it wasn't called InfoSec. It was called ComSec, Communication Security. And it was
still a thing.
It's still a thing, but it's what the organization I worked for was called when I first started working for it. And I keep hearing things like reminiscent of those good old days of what we need to worry about. But
what's old is new again, Jeff.
Tell me about it, except for me.
That's just what's old is old again, or even older.
Oldening. It's oldening more.
I mean, all the mobile signals out there that are just the regular signals, SMS, texting. God forbid somebody should actually use their phone as a phone. Is that communication encrypted by default? I don't believe it is. It's digitized, it's encoded, but is there encryption involved?
You mean
by default?
The voice part, or do you mean the network
the voice
over
or
which
the
it's
text?
traveling?
Either one.
On the cell phones? Yes.
On the cell phones.
On the cellular networks. So that's a great one. So the only
Shitty encryption, but it's there.
The only experience that I have
It is
was,
or it isn't.
let me clarify. The only experience I have was going back to some talks that Hikari did at ShmooCon, God, more than a decade ago, with some analysis of 3G technologies, and that there was 3 different types of security profile for setting the level of encryption. And it was from what they were able to determine was that it was on a tower by tower basis on how the
Ouch.
encryption was configured.
Really? Is
And
that because
Sounds like for bandwidth and throughput, it would default to the lowest. which means
And
it's
my
probably very
understanding
little.
was that the default was there was some encryption available, and Hikari made rainbow tables available for breaking the encryption for the default. But the protocol itself supports the ability to have no encryption. And it was configured at a tower by tower basis. And the idea was to have worldwide application of that cellular 3G service, that there were areas on the planet and certain political regimes that required the ability to have unencrypted communications so that they could monitor their citizens. So the answer is maybe.
So
But the
Well,
answer is we
can't-
don't know
Right.
definitively.
Right.
So then isn't it that every carrier can always decrypt every phone call?
I mean, arguably, because every carrier can decrypt the phone calls on their network, because they do. The cellular over the air part is encrypted over the air, but it gets terminated and decrypted at their towers.
right.
So
Right.
they could,
Yeah.
and I think that comes back to the meat of our story that we're spending a really long
I
time
wonder
on.
if
Is
it
that
encrypts just in the
Yeah.
last mile, the last leg from the last tower to your phone.
exactly
But
And that-
everything else, it's unencrypted.
and right, everything else it's under the control of the mobile operator. We have no idea what they're doing. They could
Right.
not. They could have the ability to decrypt, and this is why we're now. The advice is, don't rely on text messaging, because maybe someone can get in the way with that. You need to deal with higher layers of the stack to have additional security there with encryption, with stuff like Signal and WhatsApp,
And when it came
because
to
the mobile
5G,
operators can't break that.
So, it's supposed to be encrypted over the air, and 5G's got stronger algorithms than 4G and 3G. But remember the whole dust up about the 5G gear from Huawei, because they could man in the middle and get at that encryption. So, as you said, how the mobile operator implements the system. Sure, it's encrypted over the air, but what about the not over the air part?
Yeah. Yep. It transitions from over the air to not over the air at some point.
Well,
Yep.
what the private sector calls encryption and what I call encryption are not always the same thing.
Yeah, it turns out in the private sector, they're learning the term end-to-end encryption, which is closer to what you and I mean. It's closer, but no.
Not really.
Just shaking his head.
So actually, one of my comments I made on the whole switch to a signal or WhatsApp and stuff. Before you do that, understand how the encryption works. I mean, what is it? Some of them, any participating device can encrypt it. Others, like you get one device per phone. There's a much higher bar. I think Signal's got a stronger encryption algorithm than some of the others. Not trying to be biased one way or another. It's like what? Caveat emptor, buyer beware. Just know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Which could be, in the context of Jeff's statement, might be the impossible dream. But we can encourage our friends to choose wisely, and then they have to own what they choose.
Yep. All right. How about we move along? Mandy, did you have a story that you wanted to cover?
I do. So this story, I absolutely love this write-up.
Whose story and number?
It's my story number 1, and it has 2 titles. The first one being, "It turns out that a public phone is also a smartphone."
Yes.
This is referencing a payphone, a public payphone.
Yep.
But that write-up by Inbar Raz, I found through Hackaday. And Hackaday's title is Unexpectedly Interesting Payphone Gives Up Its Secrets. So a few things about this. Right off the bat, going to tell our listeners that Inbar is based in Tel Aviv, and he has done much throughout the hacker community for a long time, but this is originally in Hebrew. Thank you, Google Translate, because it seems to be doing a pretty good job.
and for the record, Mandy's actually been reaching out to Inbar to see about an appearance on the show to talk about his involvement in the community and specifically this article. But he will definitely have some more to tell about it, I'm sure. So
yes, and it's looking like hopefully he will join us next week, so we'll go in depth. But right now, what I want to bring out is 20 years ago, he said he'd noticed this public phone, and the technician who was working on it talked about how there was a whole computer inside and that the phone could diagnose problems on its own and then notify the service center. So we're talking 20 years ago with this payphone. Fast forward to 5 years ago, and Inbar happened to see that someone was selling it. So he got this payphone, took it all apart, and this is a fascinating story of him reverse engineering the software and starting 5 years ago, especially using Ghidra, because Ghidra had just been released. This wasn't, we weren't really used to using Ghidra in the community, but it goes through lockpicking, Def Camp, getting somebody donating a pick kit, getting down to every part of final success in getting the communication to work. What were you going to say, Larry?
Oh yeah, no. So I as I was reading through this article, it was fascinating about the lock picking part because he got someone to donate a set of picks, and he spent forever trying to pick this lock open so he didn't have to drill through it. And the part that really grabbed me was like, dude only has one hand and uses a prosthesis for the other one.
Exactly.
I'm like, what the fuck?
How the hell did he pull this off?
Dude can pick locks better than I can.
Exactly. And it was like,
oh my, blew my mind.
I agree. I was like, okay, that is fascinating part.
And as we're getting down into some of the article and that type of stuff, when he goes into some of the hardware hacking, I'm going to see if I can find it here. He's looking through the software, the reverse engineering, describing all the hardware. He's writing code at the beach while he's in Cancun at a conference for this really weird assembly language for the 1608 or the 1806.
The 1806, which is actually an 1805, but because it was so similar to the 1806, he just simplified.
Right. And down the actual bottom, the last image in the story, when he's got code working on the display, which is actually a standard display he finds that was in the phone, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Circuit board, Arduino, keyboard. What is that holding the screen? I'm like, this
What's his hand?
Yes.
God damn it. I'm like, what is this? What is this fancy stand he's got for the...
Oh, I need one of those. This is beautiful.
No, I do. No, but still, wow.
Well, I thought you'd really dig the picture he has with the logic analyzer hooked up. I mean, the hell with the UART hacking we talked about. Look at that.
Totally.
That's old school.
Yep.
And I guess the code is there was 32K of code in this thing?
Yeah.
Something like that. It was amazing. And that the author's credentials were in the code.
Yeah, I love that. I love that he found the
Easter
eggs names. Yes. And and what was it? Was it the strings that wouldn't go through Hebrew? Like he had to recode. Oh, what was that part?
Well, I couldn't believe it. There was the phone, which the software apparently was of Israeli origin, had English messages in it. I was like, what? Wait, whose audience is this for?
Yeah.
Why do that?
Well, I'm still very curious on how it diagnosed and gave information back to the service provider. Let me look for it. There was so much in this story.
Yeah.
Oh, the manufacturer of the phone.
Israeli
Did you know
military
that?
Industries.
This is no secret.
Yeah, apparently it was no
Wait.
secret. Yeah, but it was there.
It's
Yep.
wait, really?
Yes, really.
Yep.
He was able to basically go search the internet and find that they made it.
To quote the article, I must admit, if you asked me to guess who makes the device, I would bet on the immediate suspects being the communications and electronics companies of the late 80s and early 90s, like Tadirian. But it would not have occurred to me that the manufacturer of the device is IMI, the Israeli Military Industries. But if you read Wikipedia and he links to the article, you'll discover that it's actually not a secret at all.
I mean, IMI makes everything, but damn, they really make everything. Jesus.
Yeah. This guy is awesome.
It is. I was like, this deserves to be like read as an epic story.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, I want the audiobook because it's going to be a novel.
I agree.
And anyway, just does this come? I think this falls in our feel good category stories,
I
even
think
though
so,
it's
too.
not. It's just really.
I agree.
cool.
It's I'm so
I
glad
agree.
that he
For no
responded.
other reason why I can't tell you the last time I've seen a payphone.
And did you see what good condition this is? Like, I love how
Yeah.
he took like everything in the cases and shows what great condition it is. And I want to shout out to Inbar for responding and for Chris Roberts for giving me an introduction to him earlier today so that I could get
Yeah,
more
look,
information.
I don't read Hebrew, but looking at like one of the first pictures after he picked up the phone,
There's an English translation.
Just translate. I'm
well, it's-
using Google Translate.
it's in the picture itself.
Oh, okay.
And it's when he's showing a picture of the lock, the first challenge. There's a sticker on the side of it that says 2/2018. I'm
Yeah.
guessing that was probably the last time the phone had
Inspected?
undergone maintenance in the field.
Yeah.
Probably because he purchased it in
Yeah,
2019.
19. Yep.
And I'm thinking, in America, we didn't have this type of phone at that point, right? We still
No.
largely had the old non-credit card. I know we have credit card-based payphones now.
Yep.
I'm just trying to do but
But
I've
then
never seen
back,
this
I
kind of
mean,
phone in Europe before in the U.S.
thinking about the technology they had, I think in the early 2000s and even in France, you could do kind of video calls and video conferencing through your landline in certain ways. I can't remember how that worked, but and we didn't have anything like that.
I mean, we had it, but you had to have a special phone, and it never caught on.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yep,
We
never
had
caught on.
video phone call technology since the 1960s.
Jeff was
But it
there.
wasn't public.
Jeff knows it because he built it.
It came over on the Nina with Jeff.
It was there.
Well, it was
I thought he was on the
it was
Pinta.
being hoarded by Dick Tracy. He wanted to corner the watch market.
It's true. It's true. You know, it just goes to show how much science
I was
fiction.
on the flagship, the Santa Maria. Come on now.
Just goes to show you how much science fiction shapes us. Like how much Star Trek has changed, and like you think Dick Tracy with the video on the watch, like you know, get
Or
out your
the-
i-
wasn't
get
the
out your
box in the
iWatch and
car?
Android. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The
I remember, just remember in I guess maybe Jeff and I remember this. The cool detective and cop had the phone in the car,
Yep.
like Canon and some of the others.
Mm-hmm.
That was,
As much as I love hearing old guys reminisce about the old days, and I'm one of them. What else have we got?
Oh boy, what else do we have?
that was awesome,
Okay.
Andy.
Jeff,
good.
Yes, sir.
thanks.
pick a story, any story.
What did I have up here?
I actually can I recommend Lee's stories about Romania?
Oh,
Well, I was going to ask why so many stories about Romania, but it's my turn, Josh.
We'll
How
do
about- let's-
Romania.
let's
next.
talk
We'll do
donuts.
Romania next. Donuts.
Donuts.
Yeah, but Ray, we talked about like right in the kickoff. What healthcare, donuts, and vodka.
That's right.
I had a story last week that I carried over on the vodka side because, well, it's relevant to our interests. But donuts, that's also relevant to our interests.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it's a PCI issue, of course, but and they
Shocking.
didn't actually go into a lot of detail. They just said that their digital ordering system has been disrupted, which I guess is their way of saying they got their website hacked, their e-commerce site hacked. And what I was trying to find, but I couldn't find anything that gave the definitive answer that, more and more common these days and relevant to the new PCI 4.0 requirements that become fully effective next April is things attacked against web skimming attacks, which are commonly referred to as mage card attacks. I'm guessing that's probably what it was, because I don't know of other common ways to attack websites, but maybe it was just a denial of service attack. I don't know, but
No.
they're messing with the Krispy Kreme donuts.
Some interesting thing that I see about this. The story that you posted was published today. Today.
Yep.
Really early in the morning. But it says that according to a securities filing that Krispy Kreme was notified on November 29th of the breach.
Right.
And so breach is an interesting use of words there. And it's now we're getting wind of this and an article being published, more than 11 days later.
Sure.
And that it appears to only be affecting online ordering in parts of the United States.
Yeah.
Huh. All interesting.
That is interesting.
Read into it.
I will hypothesize that I'm sure Krispy Kreme is probably a franchise model.
Yep.
And maybe corporate owns the e-commerce aspect, the digital ordering system.
Interesting.
Maybe not. Maybe there's a couple of different options, because you're talking about shipping fresh donuts, so maybe that is something that is regional. That means it may be owned by one of the franchises, so there may be options, and that's why there's differences.
It's interesting. They think some of this is going to be covered by their cyber insurance.
Okay, let me be clear. For anybody that thinks any part of a breach that ever happens to you will from now on ever be covered by your cyber insurance, I have only one thing to say.
Give up.
Wait, no. You should have had Mandy do the laugh.
Mandy, go for it.
There we go.
Very good.
It needs to be more of a depressing laugh, not a Dudley Do-Right laugh.
Well, it depends. Are they channeling the insured or the insurer?
Yes.
The insurer.
Then that was perfect.
In a similar vein, real quick here was mine about vodka maker Stoli. Says a ransomware attack in August contributed significantly to their current bankruptcy filing, and they are facing $84 million in debt, and that they've filed for bankruptcy, and that part of that was because of a ransomware attack. Yeah.
Does it go into detail? I didn't get a chance to read the article on how they accrued the debt. Is it lost revenue and they haven't been able to pay their bills? Is it fines? I can't imagine any litigation has been settled yet.
Yeah, their ERP system was disabled, and most of the Stoli Group's internal processes, including accounting functions, were forced into a manual entry mode.
Oof.
So, yeah. They hindered their company's efforts to provide financial data to current lenders who accused the companies of defrauding on their debt. No ransomware gang has taken credit, and they didn't respond whether they actually paid the ransom.
Interesting. And all together now, class, do we pay ransomware?
It's illegal to pay ransomware.
At least in the U.S. it is. That wasn't my question, Josh.
No.
But
Well,
doesn't
no.
it?
Technically, it should be. It depends, but no.
We do backups, immutable backups. And then we don't have to pay ransomware.
I'm gonna throw the.
And
the-
why
the-
are more
the-
and more people paying larger
Yeah,
ransoms?
I'm gonna use the line that I use with my kids every once in a while. What do you mean, we Kimosabe?
All right, and
As
I go
your
back to
child
the
get
line.
older.
No, I go back to the line on that. Then I don't negotiate with crazy.
And
That's a good
I'm not
there's
policy.
another
gonna-
line, but I can't say it on air.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could say it online. It's probably not a good idea, though.
Probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
You could say it.
you
They
do
would
want
just
to.
have
You
to
do not
edit
want to
it
get
out.
crossways with OFAC, and that's
No,
where
I'm
you're going to
good.
head if you
I'm
pay
good.
it.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I apologize, but can I? Yeah,
Yes.
Larry,
Next story, Josh. Is that what you're going
number
for?
two. You're number two.
My number two. Yeah. Mandy as well. In the downward turn, because I have another story that's arguably depressing as well. We do talk about folks that were really influential and amazing in the community that we have lost, and in the last couple of days, we did lose an amazing person to the community. In fact, Billy Boatwright, who was a former guest on the show, and I had to go back and do a little research and had to ask some of my co-hosts about Billy, because I think I'd only ever really encountered him in passing, and he had been a guest on the show, but it was a week that I wasn't here, so I didn't have a lot of the background.
He was a business partner of mine a long time ago.
Oh, wow. That's right. I forgot.
Well,
and he was the first hacker group I went to, Shadow Syndicate. And of course, then my disabilities were far more pronounced and visible, and he approached and helped me just acclimate to hacker world, hacker culture, started to introduce me more to DEF CON, he was very active in social engineering.
Yep.
He was an amazing social engineer. He was ridiculously good, and he couldn't barely speak. He had a trach, and so he would. Okay, so this is but the dude was so good.
And he highlighted immediately, because I was using adaptive devices, whether it was wheelchair or canes or a different, walker, my service animal and stuff. And he gave me a lot of support, because he's like, no, this is, it was stuff that I'd already kind of been doing. But then he showed how he used his adaptive devices in social engineering and penetration testing, and how much it helped. It was so easy.
He would hide things under his bandana that he used to hide his trach.
They covered the
trach. His
yeah.
oxygen bag. They'd see it as oxygen, and they just close it.
They put a false bottom in his oxygen tank, so he could have sniffers and everything with him all the time.
The dude was amazing. He
wrote a book about overcoming imposter syndrome.
Yep.
He was one of the genuinely most nicest people I've ever met in my life, and I will miss him forever.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, it's one of those that, it's for me. It's one of those types of things, and hearing you two talk about him, that I wish.
So did you find the interview segment, Larry?
I didn't get a chance to watch it. It was a crazy week, but I did watch his talk. That he did at DEF CON Social Engineering Village.
Yeah, it was a CSE Village. Yeah,
it was the one where he was talking about imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
and that he loved baseball, and he was did baseball as a kid, and anybody can realize that the .000 batting average is fucking horrible, but he still loved baseball anyways.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's this is to me one of those cases that, he was one of those kind of people that I wish I had gotten to know better and gotten a chance to talk to more than just in passing. So, given that we're coming to the end of the year, and that this is the time to check in with folks, to go check in with folks and see how they're doing.
Everybody, seriously, please call your friends. The ones you haven't spoken to in 3 years, 5 years, 7, just call them. Say hello.
Yep.
I'm horrible about that.
Heck, I'd say send them a text
use
message,
a payphone,
but should probably tell them to use Signal instead.
Use Signal. Actually, I have been reconnecting with people from the past recently, and I have gotten about 4 people to switch either WhatsApp or Signal.
Nice.
Good.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Josh, did you have any other words you wanted to say about Mr. Boatwright?
He was a gentleman, a scholar, one of the smartest guys I've met, and one of the most clever people. He knew how people worked. He taught me a lot about public speaking, and he literally couldn't do public speaking. But he was a flair bartender before he was a hacker.
Yeah.
So he knew people better than almost anybody I've ever met. The man was unbelievably brilliant. His wife is lovely, by the way. She's just a sweetheart person. She was a flair bartender, and she made crazy money doing flair bartending competitions. And like I was at his house once. He stored all the stuff for B-Sides Las Vegas for years. Like he was so active. And he showed me the setup. They had a practice setup in the garage. Like he did a few tricks. It's amazing stuff. But yeah, he would want everybody to be happy, and he would want everybody to be in touch. So please call.
Yep.
Call me. Call somebody.
Yep.
If you're having problems, please yell.
And I will say, Mandy, you posting that to our internal Slack, and really, like, I wanted to know what the backstory was, so I tried to go do some research, and it was really hard to do research into Billy
And to know.
To know,
Yeah.
and I will say the problem is because his condition had been going on for so long, but he had such an amazing outlook.
In an operation
did.
every 6 weeks.
Every 6 weeks. So he was at
Yeah.
over 200 operations having to go through that. And I'm looking because the episode Adrian Sanabria had conducted our main interview, even though it was on PSW whenever we had that. And it was bronchial stenosis, tracheal bronchial stenosis, I think was
He
the
had polyps
affliction.
in his windpipe.
Yeah,
And
effectively,
they could
so
they just had to
windpipe
go
was
in and
closed.
scrape them every 6 weeks.
Yeah, windpipe was going to close off, and he was going to suffocate. Yep. So I think some of the last posts that I saw from him on various social media was 282
Yeah.
surgeries, and
I just can't believe he's gone.
yeah, I can't, and I can't believe that he had such a great attitude after all of that, and was such an amazing member of the community to so many folks. So
I agree.
Yeah.
in a somewhat related, depressing fashion, maybe not nearly as personal to some of the folks on this show and to the community, but Thomas Kurtz also passed away at 96 years old. He was the creator of the basic computer programming language.
And I helped.
Oh my gosh.
You helped. You helped kill him, or you helped with the basic programming language?
No, I helped with basic.
He helped birth him. No, he helped.
I was a summer intern. Come on.
I will apologize that
Totally making all that.
the article is at the New York Times, which requires you to log in.
Yeah, I can't see anything.
Yeah, but still, I have a lot of fond memories of BASIC. In high school, that was the primary language I used for 4 years on the computers. Those were the hand crank
It
computers.
only took me
Jeff.
3 years to get through high school.
10 print, Lee rocks.
You know,
20,
it
go
takes
to
a little
10.
longer if every other class you flip off the teacher.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yep.
It wasn't necessarily literally, but things like sitting in class correcting my program instead of in the front row with it rolled down in front of my desk generally sends the wrong message.
How did you edit the punch tape?
Oh, you can cut it and put the little pulley things on, or you could
Splice it.
you can splice it. But mostly we had storage for the programs on the system, the limited amount of storage. But yeah. Anyway, those were some fun times. But like I said, those hand crank computers are nothing like today's computers. Actually, there was a story that I haven't forgotten about your Romanian comment, Josh. But there's a story that Larry and I have in common about that NTLM vulnerability with the free.
The my story number 5, the URL file NTLM hash disclosure.
Yeah, and I think I put that in as well. I'm pretty sure I did. Yeah, my number 9. But basically, there's a flaw that Microsoft hasn't produced a fix for yet, that you can use file viewer to entice it to get the credentials out, your NTLM hash out, which of course we know how useful an NTLM hash is. And the thing I think it's cool they discovered it. Microsoft's working on it. And Microsoft is mumbling about really we want to move from NTLM to Kerberos. I'm thinking there was comments about you can either go. My question for this group is which of the options makes the most sense? Do you disable NTLM? Do you do the unauthorized patches, or do you do something else? I mean, not unauthorized, unofficial patches. Excuse me. And and if you go with those patches, do you pay for them?
Yeah, so this was there was all sorts of craziness about this, and I started reading on this, and there didn't seem to be a lot of technical detail that I could find, and I didn't do a ton of research about how the NTLM hash disclosure vulnerability works. But they did say that it was from Windows 7 all the way to the latest version of Windows 11 and Server 2022, that by opening a shared folder on a USB disk, having the user view a malicious file with a Windows Explorer, or even just viewing the downloads folder where such a file that could exploit this vulnerability was automatically downloaded from a web page, like automatic download triggers, you go and view the downloads folder. What the hell was that thing? And it would allow NTLM hashes to be revealed. I thought this was crazy that sounds fucking horrible. And two, the company that is releasing it has a tool that they have created a quote, what they refer to as a micro patch to fix it using their software. So like if you're running their software on Windows 7, you can get micro patches that they deploy so that it can fix the issue without even having to reboot the system or change the service, because they're patching in memory and on disk and so forth. But unofficial patches before Microsoft has deployed this stuff. And stuff has come up on the show for forever about unofficial patches. And I'm like still shocked that this is a thing. So
The unofficial patches make me kind of nervous. I mean, I love the intent that they're offering a fix for what they believe is a significant flaw, and that they're also holding the details back because they disclosed it to Microsoft for them to deal with, and so they don't want to violate their any NDA with Microsoft. Good on them, but they may. I mean, if I was talking about my home lab, I'd try the unofficial patch. I mean, no big deal. But for my enterprise, I'm kind of Plus, I still though, if I'm looking at a corporate deployment, I surely would pay. I wouldn't use a demo account to try for one fix and then walk away without giving them any money. I mean, that is their work.
I think if we want to tie this back to the interview with Eric, excuse me, it all comes down to the certain level of risk. Is the level of risk that like some of these systems that you won't get patches for to use a service like this, and if you're using Windows 7 in an environment, I would hope you have other compensating controls that people aren't plugging in USB thumb drives, and you aren't letting this thing surf the internet and all this type of stuff. So
and don't expect Microsoft to patch Windows 7.
No.
I feel like we should weave somehow my story number 5 into this conversation, which was talking about a 10-year-old vulnerability that's being exploited in the wild.
Yeah, I will say I appreciate everybody on the show actually trying to hit the stories that we talked about in the teaser
exactly.
at the beginning. So yes, teaser. Jeff, let's talk about that 10-year-old vulnerability.
Well, and I was trying to, because I was out last week, I was trying to see because this article was like right borderline week old. I'm like, did they cover this last week? Is this a thing? And I didn't see that it was covered. It's a Cisco ASA vulnerability, I believe.
Oh.
And I meant to, of course, the article that I linked to, it's one of these, you only get so many free views a month. And the first time I looked at it, I could see the whole thing, and now I can't. So somebody else go to it that hasn't gone to this site that can read the whole thing. But the CVE is 2014-2120. And I started looking that up, and I just ran out of time because the show started.
Stupid show.
stupid show. I'm fascinated, in all the conversation. And I was
Oh,
thinking
this is one of
maybe
my stories too.
I thought I had seen it. I thought that there was probably overlap with one of the stories. So if you've got a whole story, Lee, maybe you can pick up the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's my number 12. Cisco Adaptive Security Appliance Web VPN login page cross-site scripting vulnerability. I didn't realize it was a 12-year-old.
10-year-old.
10. Okay. Oh,
It's
that's so
only
much
10
better.
years old.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
MSO 8067? Oh, wait, that's not 10 years yet.
So close, Josh. Very close.
Wait, is that 10 years? MSO 8?
That'd be 2018 would be 10 years.
Yeah.
It is. So yeah, you're talking.
Okay, who's still
16.
finding MSO 8067 out in the wild?
I have not, but I did hear some reports of some friends that found one, and I want to say it was 3 months ago. It's been longer than 3 months within the last year.
Right. I mean,
Yep.
the story I linked to was, I linked to the Cisco advisory. But yeah, there is no workaround for this one, by the way. It's a patch your stuff. Yeah. There were better stories. I mean, I think your reference is a little better, Jeff, because it does
but
get into
I
that.
can only see the first 2 sentences of it right now. The first time I brought it up, I could read the whole thing.
So speaking of the first 2 sentences, Romania.
So
Why the sudden
Romania's-
interest in
Why?
Romania?
I don't
Lee?
know. I don't know. I was
So-
just trying to move us
so
down
I-
a little bit
I-
because we had a bunch of stories about Romania. So
Yeah, I glommed
Why?
onto these two because I thought they were related. So the story that caught my attention was that Romania had an election, and there was election infrastructure hacking, SQL injection kind of flaws that were exploited, and then there was campaign hacking, TikTok campaigns or misuse of campaign funds, which that can or doesn't happen wherever. I mean, that's really not a cyber problem in many ways, but your election system wasn't good enough, and it was a severe enough event that their courts rendered the election results invalid, and that the election will have to be done again. When everybody else was lining up for a runoff between the top 2 candidates, they thought, "Hey, it's this close. We're gonna have a runoff here. Now it's a do-over." The thing that distressed me in reading about this was that there wasn't a lot of information about how they are going to prevent recurrence. I mean, they talked about we've engaged cyber experts and blah, 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 but nowhere that said, I didn't see anywhere that says we're fixing our shit, right? And of course, properly worded, but and so, and then as I'm digesting them on that, I come across this story about their critical infrastructure getting hacked. So I'm thinking, the timing. There's no way this wasn't part of a 1-2 blow on these guys. Although the attacking on their election was from like 30 different countries. I mean, everybody.
Are you saying that Romania has poor cybersecurity as a country?
I don't think I can throw stones.
Okay, valid.
yeah,
I am concerned. I also don't believe they're taking this lying down. By the way, I suspect this got them right square in the ego. Those involved. They're just
Right in
not
the
saying
feels.
what they're really
Well,
doing
I mean,
about it.
elections, electricity, what's next? Erections? I don't, like what's it's.
I beg your
It
pardon.
was a joke. It was a joke, Jeff. It was a joke. Don't get excited.
These are the jokes.
I
So,
think those
but
go
no-
together. Getting excited and
Yeah.
mind.
In all seriousness, I mean, there was a time when we thought that there was a significant amount of attacks in the U.S. against power, water, sewer, etc. And there were, by the way. And we wondered if it was a precursor to an attack on a country, either ours or another one. This is a distraction. Could this be cyber warfare in some form or fashion? Not to take down their electricity systems, for example, their electrical systems, but to distract them from something that somebody's doing on a more geopolitical stage.
Right. And oh, by the way, this is not a Romania problem specifically. I mean, this is an article about Romania, but this is not unique to there. I mean, I'm hearing stories from all over the world about that exact sort of scenario where their adversaries are poised to take out electrical, water, all that stuff. And what amazes me is that, well, maybe I should be careful how I say that. What I keep scratching my head over is, are we really doing anything about this
Here in this country?
or anywhere? I mean,
Not much.
And is
Take the telecoms, for instance.
right. I mean, you
Yeah, we talked
the
about that.
wiretap systems are cool, right?
Shocking.
I'm
I
just
think
gonna install
telecoms are
backdoors.
considered critical infrastructure.
They
Yeah.
are.
If
They
not,
have their own
they
ISAC.
should be.
Yeah. No,
Well, there you go.
I may be being sarcastic, but I agree with you. The telecom's critical, power, water. I mean, I know a lot of stuff was set up for easy remote access, and that is one of the symptoms, but you still got the reusable credentials. You still got the lack of monitoring or whatever. You also have public utilities of scale, from, big behemoths who can afford massive security measures to those that are like
Can
effectively a
allegedly
mom and
afford.
pop shop.
Can allegedly afford.
Yeah, excuse me.
Well, can't afford
What Larry said.
and pays and makes the investment, two different things.
Right.
Yeah.
And when an incident happens, they don't take it out of the shareholders. They're just supposed to eat it out of the other things. Remember that big San Bruno fire thing that recovery wasn't supposed to come out of the shareholders. It was supposed to come out of the company coffers. I don't know how you differentiate that. But anyway, yeah, so it seems like there's a, and by the way, there are people like CISA and DHS and others in our country trying to raise the bar here, but they're not coming with money. So I'm not sure how it's going to happen.
So
Or not very much
unfunded
money.
mandates?
I know.
That would never happen in the
It
U.S.
just brand new for 2025. FY25, that they've invented this thing called an unfunded mandate.
M2131, also from 2022.
Can you say EO 14028? I knew
just
you
did,
could.
actually. But yes, that's May 15th, 2021. Is it terrifying that I know this?
Yes.
No. Not to me, but I hang out in weird places. At least I used to. Now I'm
I was
retired.
going to say you
You
used
used
to
to.
hang out weird places.
Yes, but anyway, so like I said, but in the case of the Romania stories, I'm thinking it was a 1-2, that they were trying to, whatever the geopolitical impact that you talked about, Josh, was affecting the election.
Mhm.
Of course, it doesn't make it any more pleasant to be somebody in Romania responding to it. Of course not.
No.
No, and
I
you said
do
it was
feel
from
for
30 different countries. It wasn't just like backed
It-
by Russia or something.
Well, remember that you can vector attacks through multiple countries.
Right. And there were certain things that implied that Russia was behind it, but I wasn't authoritative enough that I wasn't going to say that.
Maybe somebody thought it was a CTF.
Hey, and they didn't.
Romania, that's not a real country. That can't actually be
Yeah,
existing.
but to be honest, if I
Could you
was,
do that? Could you start a CTF and just point it at a country and go, let's see what the fuck happens?
yeah, I mean, this
Heard it
is
here
vulnerable
first.
to sequel I have at.
Yeah, I mean, this reminds me of the shirt that I saw at ShmooCon years ago, and it may have been Ubix that was wearing it. And on the back of the shirt was, "Let me just test that in my lab." And below that was a picture of China.
That's Mobix for you.
Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's CTF, right? Let's just pointed it somewhere.
So,
Well, that made me, if it was from Russia, anyway, the whole thing made me think of your story number 6, Larry, about the Texas Instruments store, the online store being so vulnerable. Like,
Russia, quote, Russia's military found a surprisingly simple way to buy U.S. chips because they're under embargo.
Okay, what'd they do?
They leveraged the API
yeah.
for the inventory-based API through other distributors to effectively place orders through third parties and get them delivered. And
Where did they have them sent to?
Moscow.
Well,
You'd think that the shipping address would Anyway,
it ended up
No,
being
it-
like a proxy. So there was they leveraged an API. Russia leveraged an API against a company that was leveraging TI's API. So it was an API of an API, and then it was so they could order through the company through the API that was then ordering directly through the API. This is sort of where I've got it from.
So, in other words, a third-party provider of TI products was manipulated to get the chips, and then probably was that third party that shipped them,
Yeah.
not TI themselves.
Yep.
I can't
And
read the article because of the Bloomberg
Okay.
paywall.
Yeah.
Same.
That's
I
not,
read it
that's not a
earlier.
complaint.
And again, this is one of those apologies. I did sign up for Bloomberg on a
It's cool.
email
It's
address
cool.
to get it.
Um,
But I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to find where they say they shipped them to.
Can you paste it in our chat?
and they could have shipped it to a relay,
I think you could say
or
it
a
out
drop
loud.
that
He
somebody
just has to
sent, then
find it.
turned
I just
around
have
and
to
shipped
find
them
it.
somewhere else.
But I can do better than that because I knew this was going to be a problem. I'll put that into the chat. I did. File print to PDF of the article.
There we go.
Okay.
So
And
sorry, doesn't help our listeners a whole hell of a
No,
lot. but
it does not.
for the
Apologies.
discussion.
In the interim, while he's doing that, I'll say a couple things I remember from the article was one about the sales deck. It was like from was it a gray area middleman that had a sales deck that literally talked about how precisely to manipulate the API?
I think so.
And
That's about right.
then, who did it go to? Was it the Senate? Who was doing the investigation on it because of the
There's a picture of a senator
embargo
in there.
breach? Was it the Senate? And there were 4 main chip suppliers that were being compromised in this very simple way, but Texas Instruments was definitely the most egregiously ignorant of what should have been going on and just ignored.
I can't believe that Texas Instruments wasn't hip on ITAR. I mean,
Yeah. Well, so I'm reading through this again a little bit more, and it's looking like that it was done through China, and then Chinese companies effectively reshipped. Let's see here. Bloomberg provided TI with a list of about half dozen popular products that have been shipped to Russia from Hong Kong this year. And TI said it did not ship any of those goods to any of the 3 Hong Kong companies. And further investigation suggests that there are likely intermediate steps before the products reach Hong Kong, or some goods may have been purchased in previous years. The goods are shipped from Hong Kong to Russia, mostly through a freight company called Sea Global SCM Limited and the Russian airline Aeroflot.
This is starting to sound like a Bruce Willis movie.
seriously, I was just thinking.
It means we think too much alike, Josh. That's pretty scary.
It's the bald heads. They transmit and receive electricity and thought patterns, you know?
Yeah. It's got to be what it is.
and the Russian distributor puts a 40% markup on top of TI prices.
Yep. No, I mean, when you can't get it at all.
Yeah,
Yep.
Hey, capitalism exists in more places than the U.S.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
so let's
Segue?
let's segue into another thing. I mean, we've got supply chain firewalls. We've got.
Supply chain firewalls.
I think it's hilarious. That's why I wanted to talk about it.
Go for it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
What
do
does
it.
that even mean?
Well, I mean, what does a supply chain firewall mean? Let's see. Where is it? There it is. I mean, Larry, it's your story, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
What's it all about, Alfie?
Exactly. Which story is this? Oh, my story number 3. And in fact, this one actually, I think I saw Adrian Sanabria post this to our internal Slack, which was like, what the? That's not what a firewall means. What is this? Blocking a tour of supply chain firewall, blocking installation of known malicious packages.
You mean like an
You're
EDR
telling me
product?
it's basically an antivirus for developers?
Aborting installations of vulnerable packages.
It's got a cool graphic.
Yep. I
There's alien space lights. There's the serpent.
Well,
There's
mind
like
you,
the
this is
Garden
only
of
for
Eden.
Python coming from and PyPy and NPM packages, but still.
I mean,
Yep.
I get the idea of doing this. This was the idea of the VEX project on S-bombs. This was the idea of a vulnerability exchange, in that you can say, hey, look, you're building this project with these 5 libraries. This one has a vulnerability. Do you want to use it, or would you like to update it? Oh, well, let's update it. Okay, cool. That's great. There's no problem there. I'm totally cool with that. But the idea of this supply chain firewall, I kind of understand what they're trying for. They're trying for just it's the same things like a DLP system. Hey, did you mean to send that social security number out the door? Yes, I did. Okay.
Well, and I'm
It's just a
thinking
check.
if
I
I'm-
do
I'm-
not think you use that word firewall correctly.
Well, I
Wait,
know.
what's that?
I'm trying to be
You keep-
I
nice.
do not think it means.
But
Yeah.
you think it
Do not
does?
think
Yeah.
it means
That
what you
word.
think it means.
Yes.
Inconceivable.
I do not think they're.
It says it works by introspecting pip and npm commands to determine whether any package targets they propose to install or update are known to be malicious or vulnerable.
But I could just see somebody doing a big bunch of build installs and saying, just give it a big capital Y and don't bother me about all this crap.
Yeah.
But-
But I mean, because that's
It's
also in the
cool.
command line that it does that, which means that you have to watch your deploy.
Right.
And you can also screw up your build systems if you use this, because this requires human interaction.
Yeah. Unless
I'm starting to get bothered by their use of the word firewall. by the way.
Yeah.
Starting to get bothered, you're
I
behind.
think that was the part of the reason why I included this and when Adrian posted that and when,
yeah. See,
you
so
keep
what's going
using
through
this
the
word.
back of my head is I had somebody tell me that the only way they include open source in their final project is if they have the source for it and they compile
Lee,
it
lean in.
themselves.
Lee, put your microphone
Lean
closer
in.
to your face.
Oh, sorry. I was.
That's better.
It,
You're relaxing because you're retired.
damn straight. So I was thinking about, but this is Python. I'm thinking, somebody told me one of the mitigations they had thought about for theirs is all open source. They have to have the source for it and compile it themselves before it's included in any of their packages, which works great in a compiled language scenario, but not so much for Python. I was
Still
thinking
not
about
a firewall.
mitigations for this kind of a risk.
Still not a firewall.
It's not a
It's
firewall.
not a firewall. They're using it to say we're blocking people from something,
It's-
which they're saying is like a firewall. I get it. It's a bad use of it. It bothers me, but leave it alone. Anyway,
It's more of a checkpoint, as in a control point, where you
control
have
point.
to say
that I would be cool with. Jeff, you good with that one?
I mean, they're blocking payload. They're blocking something from being loaded. That's more like something else. It's not.
I said checkpoint because you have to agree to yes or no. You have to either accept if it's going to deny it, you have to agree to it. Or you can override it with a yes. It says, "Yo, dude, this is not cool." Then you have to choose. Unlike the AV analogy, where you generally didn't have a choice, it was, it's quarantined, and then you have to take action after.
I think it's an interesting idea. I think this is probably iteration 1 of this idea. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to
1.0.
go a lot farther down the road before it's useful. Let's put it that way.
Including, yeah. And even though they got a tool label, they got logo, they got to find another F word.
All right. Why don't we go to story number 11 from...
Hold on. Mandy said she had some.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Mandy. Go for it.
Oh, it's okay. I wanted more information on your 9.
My 9.
Your 9 about
Well, it's a Beretta. No, just kidding.
Yeah. Actually, mine's a Glock, but that's a different story.
about the open source real time operating systems.
Yeah.
Oh.
So this one was an article from Hackaday talking about real-time operating systems and a little bit of the differences between the more standard operating system, quote, big loop, and so forth. Talking about we compared a bunch of real-time operating systems. If you're looking to get into the development, there's a bunch that were awesome and then have been abandoned, and the free RTOS is kind of up there, right at the headline of the article, and especially with free RTOS now being supported by Amazon or being arguably taken over by Amazon. So you start getting some brand recognition, and you start using that in all your devices. It was very much the article was very much a sort of an introduction to, hey, if you're going to do some development on some of these microcontrollers, maybe you should consider a real-time operating system. We touched a bunch of ones here, and some of them are good, some of them are great, some of them their documentation absolutely sucks.
I did love that they were like ThreadX meh, because they couldn't even get through the basics.
Yeah. I mean, as part of my day job where we do firmware analysis, and so much of the firmware that we start to see it's not all Linux based when we start moving outside of a lot of the consumer electronics. There's a lot of real-time operating system stuff, and I see some of the stuff here. I'm like, for me, wanting to be able to understand that, like, I want to go build something. I want to go build an application on, super, like a Hello World application on a real-time operating system, so that I can upload it to our platform, so we can understand how we can analysis to give ourselves some baseline. And I've tried to do some of the builds for some of these. Like, one of them that show up was Riot, RIOT, and get. I tried to build something on Riot maybe 6 months ago, and the documentation was not great. Like, how do I get started? Well, go do this. Like, no, it assumed that you had this full development environment already configured, and you go add this to that, and then you're good to go. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh.
So that's where he starts up earlier in the article talking about VxWorks, QNX. Wasn't QNX the thing that BlackBerry bought?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
And or BSD. In other words, more mainstream OSs where the toolkit would be more readily available. Although I'm more familiar with people using VxWorks for this kind of stuff. Although I'm way back in my brain, I had a group who showed me all the real-time work they did on VMS. It did. Of course, it doesn't run on your everyday run-of-the-mill chip. It takes a specific chipset. But yeah,
What's
VMS could do real-time. But I digress. Anyway, I just think I think Larry's point, though, you got to have the infrastructure on the OS you need, which I don't know if they mentioned to it or not. Are they thinking, well, all we need is the C compiler and we'll take it from there?
Yeah, exactly. Great question. And I
Raise your hand if you have a C compiler on your system right now. Okay, 60%.
Yeah, I bet Mandy does, and she doesn't realize it.
Probably.
Yeah, you don't have a need to use it. You don't know, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, GCC, CC. You get a C compiler, right, Jeff?
It's not on my Windows device.
Oh my!
Sure.
I just, for the hell of it, I haven't done a lot on this Mac. Just typed GCC the prompt, and it said, "Well, no input files. You're not doing it right."
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So all
my Linux boxes have it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your
Fair.
Mac's got it.
Hey,
I haven't tried it on my Windows box. Not
Can we
yet.
go off script for a minute? It's
course.
not a story, but
No. For you, Jeff, yes.
thank you. I had heard about this conference, I don't know, in the last couple of weeks. I didn't realize that Paul was in Philadelphia attending it. Something called Cybersecurity
Marketing Conference, Cybersecurity Marketing Association and their conference. Yeah.
Something about that just rubs me the wrong way. Like, why is there a conference about cybersecurity marketing? In as much as I think marketing is responsible for a lot of the crappy terminology that becomes the buzzwords in this industry. That said, I can see, like, man, I would love to get involved and like have a whole session on, okay, you said this. What I think you meant was this. And can we change? I don't know if they'd ever let me do that. But
They probably wouldn't.
And you know,
But
and-
something about this rubs me the wrong way, just right off the bat.
And I think differently about that, Jeff. Like the conversation that I know you and I have had about, hey, you put this thing out on the internet about you're going to do this thing with vulnerability and exploit and risk, and you keep using that word.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I do not think that word means what you think it means.
yeah,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and like I think that contribution to cybersecurity
crap.
marketing people would be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, there's a difference between it
think-
would be valuable and they would let somebody come in and do that.
It's true.
It's fascinating because I have enough problems that the vendor industry runs cybersecurity prima facie, and what runs the vendors is the marketing and sales, and again, that is what's responsible for so much of the terminology. And I let me, just as an example, which might be a rant. PCI 4.0 rolls out, becomes
here we go
effective
again.
last year. And there's some new requirements in it that are becoming effective next year that have to do with these mage cart type web skimming attacks. And for the first time in my memory working with PCI, there's actually vendors that show up at the PCI conferences and say, we can do that. We can actually meet these requirements. We're all over this kind of stuff, which has been great. But I went to another security conference, in the last couple months. I won't say which one it was. It doesn't matter. And I'm going around talking to the vendors that are talking about doing all sorts of protections of websites and web architecture, this, that, and the other. And I'm asking them, do you have anything? Well, I started by asking, do you have anything to capture and inventory JavaScripts running on the client side of websites? And they're like, huh? And I said, okay, maybe that's more complicated. Are you familiar with the term mage cart attack? But again, I got, huh? It's a big thing in a very small part of our industry that everybody likes to piss on and ignore, PCI. But it goes to the point that if the purpose of this conference is to correct mistakes, great. If it's to proliferate the wrong messaging, I've got a problem with it.
Well,
that's my rant.
okay, no, valid rant. So let me answer you if you don't mind, because I've met some of the people that run it.
Well, because it was in Philly, so maybe you hung out with
I
them.
didn't go,
Okay,
but I met some of the people that run it because they live locally and they were at my conference, B-Sides Delaware.
Okay.
And so they actually invited me to it, but I still had to pay. And I'm like, I'm teaching a class this week, so I can't really go, and yada yada
Right.
yada. And I didn't feel like paying. It's a pay to enter conference. Okay.
Sure.
Several friends of mine went.
Aren't they all? Aren't they all? Well, unless you're B-sides, right?
Well,
Well, and
it's
even
not
then,
pay
a
to
little
enter
bit.
like $100. It's not a cheap date.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
But I think I'm going to try to go next year because a whole host of friends of mine went, and I didn't even know it. Besides Paul, who I knew about, but he's not.
I didn't realize he's not a friend. I didn't realize that that's what Paul was going to.
Oh yeah,
maybe he
he
mentioned
was.
it
He
in
spoke
one
at the
of my-
I thought he was
That's where he
speaking,
went.
right?
Yeah, he
he's
spoke.
speaking.
On Tuesday.
I totally missed that. That's because I don't show up enough.
But here's the thing: so I talked to them about the Cybersecurity Marketing Association. You can say like what you just said very legitimately, but realistically, what they're talking about is how to market more effectively to both cybersecurity buyers and to market more effectively for cybersecurity sellers. Because, like it or not, cybersecurity is a multi-billion-dollar market. I mean, look at CyberArk. You want to buy CyberArk or Varonis or whatever, and I don't know why, but every Varonis price is always 400,000 something, whatever. But whatever you are buying or selling, there's money there, and when there's money there, you better have marketing to do it. I mean, Larry, you've got Finite State. Finite State has marketing. Jeff, you're at OBS, right? Or online. And
OBS.
they have a marketing group. If they don't, they're not getting as much business as they could. Okay. My Cyturus, my day job is they have a marketing group, and they're working very hard on getting more sales because that's how we do this magic thing called pay Josh.
Yep.
And I like that. I like getting paid.
Lee's current company doesn't have a marketing
agree.
group.
Lee's current company has an absolute marketer. Shell is amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Actually.
well, I was going to say, my ISSA Boise chapter, we need sponsors for our conference and something. It takes marketing to get those folks.
Yeah, I just got hit up by Bill Gardner for the Marshall University conference. Okay,
And-
which I absolutely
I agree, 'cause
loved
I think-
last year.
In my old job, they do have marketing, although a number of them, they're a more familiar title, as in lobbyist. But you have the source of the money is the politicians, and you got to work with them to get funding for projects you want to do.
You're not wrong.
But and there's others, But my point is, it's the name may be different, the function is the same: to get work and or money, or to have your product used by others. That's a relationship. You're selling what you can offer to somebody else and getting to buy it. And
Well, and for all of us, I think going back to Josh's point on that, it's brilliant to have better marketing so that there's more sales, so that there's more practitioners that are able to work on developers. And yet, I think with Jeff's thing, then go back to like the podcast from Danny Wolf and Chris Roberts on WTF Did I Just Read, which is all about blowing apart the hideous parts of the marketing.
Danny's one of my friends. She's at the cybersecurity marketing conference.
Yeah, exactly.
And every year I go to RSA and Black Hat, and everybody jokes about the buzzword bingo, and I'll go through, and I'm like, I mean, for years I've been looking at the banners, and I'm like, huh? What do they
actually do? And Jeff, last year at RSA, like, if you didn't have AI in your banner,
right? Yeah,
why were you at RSA?
Yeah, I mean, how can you use AI in a sentence? But
don't
if
ask.
if the purpose of the conference is to improve the marketing, I mean, I get it that it's all about sales and everything, but proliferating the bad messaging, but it's resulting in sales. Okay, I mean,
no. But your point
outcome.
about the bad messaging about, look, I guess we've got to do something AI to sell. Okay, I get it. That's nothing a company can do about that except follow the trends, right? But using words inappropriately, doing things that are just absolutely flippin' wrong, that's something that we actually can talk about. And that's a valid point.
For example, I was at a conference last week, and I think I pissed off the person behind the booth that I was talking to because I was asking them questions. I won't say who the company was, but they had on their banner that they could mitigate risk. And I walked up to them and I said, "What do you mean by that?" And they rattled off what they're taught to say about risk and all the different things they do and its mitigation. I said, yeah, but by definition, you can't mitigate risk. You can only mitigate the factors that determine the risk. Risk is a value. Risk is a measurement. Risk is a...
That's actually incorrect.
Kind of
you can mitigate
made
risk.
Up value. You cannot mitigate risk.
Yes, you can. You can mitigate a risk.
I disagree.
You can remediate something, then it's no longer a risk to you. That's mitigating it.
You're remediating something that affects the risk. Risk is just a measurement. You don't mitigate a measurement.
By definition, you're wrong.
You mitigate the things that
make
up
why,
the value.
And this is why Jeff should do a talk at this conference.
I think I should. All right,
seriously,
I'm gonna have to get in touch with them.
If you can affect the risk, the level of risk that a company's under from a specific condition or vulnerability or whatever, by remediating the vulnerability or the condition, then you are mitigating the risk as a value.
No, you're not mitigating the risk. You're changing the risk value.
Well, okay,
you
fine.
mitigate the vulnerabilities. You mitigate the threats. You do countermeasures. You do security, which everybody's trying to get a
lowers your risk.
But risk is just.
But isn't that like? Isn't every time I put a seatbelt on, I'm mitigating the risk to me directly? Like the grand cloud of risk that's out there remains. Right. But whenever I mitigate the risk to myself by putting that on, then I have mitigated risk.
Yep, she's right.
You're lowering the risk.
Yeah, you're mitigating the risk.
To the effect that I can.
We need a
Why
definition
would mitigate not
of
be
mitigate. Mitigate is not simply lower, I don't
Well,
believe.
until you have a definition, you're wrong.
I feel like it would be lowering.
Or until I have a definition, I'm right.
No.
Wait. Definition. Make less severe, serious, or painful. It never, ever. I've never taken mitigate to mean that it was removed. Because that would be removing the risk, and none of us are doing that. We're mitigating. We're reducing the severe, or serious, or painful.
But you're not, it's semantic, but you're not reducing the risk directly, you're reducing something that impacts or affects the risk score.
Enough. We'll talk about this later. We'll define it later. Ladies and gentlemen, let's.
What is cybersecurity anyway?
Yeah, define what is. All right. Hey,
That was the Clinton administration.
yeah. Speaking of conferences, we went off a little bit of off reservation or down the rabbit path. Speaking of conferences, I kind of wish Bill was here because Bill and I got accepted to talk at ShmooCon.
Congratulations!
Oh my goodness!
Final ShmooCon ever.
Yeah, the final ShmooCon. So yeah, Bill and I are going to be talking about the cheap yellow display and building I think the talk title is using the cheap yellow display to build a Bluetooth tracker for the price of a gas station hot dog. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Build a tracker detector for the price of a gas station hot dog. The presentation that Bill started to put together already is hilarious.
Wait. Does that include the surgery you need after the gas station hot dog totally screws up your insides and you have to go for medical treatment?
No.
Or the actual purchase price of the hot dog?
Just the purchase price of the hot dog.
Is the risk from gas station sushi higher than from gas station hot dogs?
Do you mitigate the risk if you buy the hot dog and not the sushi?
Just don't buy your food from a gas station. You've eliminated the risk.
Unless you're in France and then you buy the wine because the best wine is sold at the gas station.
It's at the gas station. What if I just really need a tuna sandwich, Jeff?
Ooh, don't buy the gas station.
I can see where we're supposed to be. It's disappearing over the horizon.
And Mandy, it's supposed to be egg salad, and you have to buy it out of the vending machine in the men's room, and then you get worms, and then you turn into being able to play the whole phoner like amazingly. Oh, wait, we're not talking Futurama here. My bad.
Save us, Mr. Wizard.
Anyway, that's fantastic, Larry. I'm very happy, and even more reason to try to get to Shoo.
Let's
don't
put
try.
This way,
just show up.
Yeah, just
that's the plan.
That's what I was going to do. I was going to do LobbyCon and hadn't been successful in getting a ticket. Well, now I have a ticket because I'm speaking.
You got a ticket.
Congratulations, sir.
That reminds me.
He's got a golden ticket.
I gotta get my ticket to ShmooCon.
Yeah, you gotta try.
Or it's at the third round, right?
There is no try.
Yeah, January 1st is the next date. January 1st at noon Eastern, I think, is the next one. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I suspect there will be a lot of people showing up for LobbyCon because of the fact that it is the last one. And
I've definitely seen on socials and had some discussions about LobbyCon. A lot.
So I was going to be there LobbyCon or otherwise.
No matter what.
So here we are. But yeah, to toot my own horn, it's been a week. As some of you are friends on various social media stuff, it's been an interesting week. So ShmooCon was one of them. And
you got a promotion?
I got a promotion. Yeah.
Congratulations.
I moved into executive land now. Yep, like a dude that looks like me is an
means I think you're stupid now. But that's
Does this mean there will be more synergizing?
No.
Gosh, no.
Just because my title has changed doesn't mean the core of Larry hasn't changed. So, no, it's really cool. The writing on the wall asking a number of weeks ago that, hey, we're looking for IoT pen testers, and sure enough, here we are. We're
Congratulations.
VP of services. We're building out pen test division and a whole host of other services based type of stuff.
And you got the coolest new car ever.
I mean, so today's my birthday.
And today's his birthday.
Yeah, and it's one of those birthday. And it's one of those milestones. And so birthday, ShmooCon, promotion, and I get accepted in the master's program at SANS. So I'm gonna have a busy 2 years, hopefully less. But
wow,
congrats.
Everything's coming up roses.
Yeah, exactly. Be careful.
Way to go, buddy.
Hey,
that's an up note.
But that's it. That is definitely an up note. So let's go out on an up note, and with that, we're approaching time, or we're at time. So for someone that doesn't get to do it very often, Mandy, take us out of here.
I may have lost words. I don't even know what to say. What?
What?
Is that's all, folks?
What?
Over.
Works.
And out.
Thank you all. Yes, over and out.